What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday and welcome into our latest TDR Trade to Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dale, special edition here today. And why not? As we have a big time guest to talk about the latest earnings. Irwin Simon, chairman and CEO of Tilray Brands, joins us to dive into our latest earnings, as well what the company is going to focus on and the strategy coming up for 2025. I know a lot of you have a lot of questions, but some great results, 26% year over year when it came to net revenue for the company. So all in all, it looks like the investor community liked it because the stock is up at the time of this live stream. So let's jump into it. Welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Varell. The big week with big name guests continue to roll, don't they?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we had Boris on yesterday and we had the breaking deal. Irwin on today. I mean, got a lot of questions pertaining to their beverage business, Germany. I mean, I'm excited to dive into this one.
Yeah,
and get earnings season really kicked off.
A lot of great feedback from Boris Jordan yesterday, that's for sure, about the ALJ hearing and how he thinks it won't. So if you haven't gotten a chance yet, make sure to check out that video that we posted yesterday. A lot of great feedback on the timeline and direction on what we're going to expect over these next 60 days. But in the meantime, let's focus on the present and talk about Tilray's latest earnings and welcome in their chairman and CEO, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol TLRY, Irwin Simon. It's been about 6 months, but happy summer. How are things?
Good. You know, the summer's going real quick. And,
isn't it?
Here we are at the end of July already. I can't believe it. I think I just remember, you know, having a cold beer on July 4th. And here it is. Or it's, you know. So
we were talking yesterday with Boris Jordan about, you know, crazy events, what happened a couple of weeks ago with Donald Trump. And all the stuff that's happening since then with the Democrats and everything, it almost feels like it's a month or 2 months ago, but it's just the world we live in right now. But things are getting very political, I think, with the cannabis space on the American side. But let's focus on you and talk about a lot of the optimism for the company as you announced your latest earnings. Shares up at the time of this live stream, as I said off the top. You announced Q4 2024 along with fiscal 2024 earnings yesterday. Where revenue that was reported, they beat estimates. Some of the notable highlights included net revenue increase of 26% year over year. You reduced your net convertible debt by $300 million over the past year. And some of the fourth quarter highlights included net revenue of $229.9 million, which is a 25% net increase compared to the previous year quarter. So look, as we know, look, cash is king. You've made some key acquisitions over the past year. We're now at a point where Tilray Brands is more than just a cannabis LP. So what's next for this company? What is the focus going into 2025?
Let me back up for a minute, you know, and again, I always like to say where we started, where we are today, and where we're going to go. And in 2019, when I stepped in here, you know, we were a FRIA. We were a $50 million Canadian cannabis company with about $20 million of cash left, and we're probably burning $20 million of cash a month. And at that time, cannabis just legalized in Canada in October of 2018. And, you know, cannabis was the new crypto. Cannabis was the new exciting, you know, toy in town. And you had all these investors and all this money coming at it. And a lot has happened in 5 years in the cannabis world. Okay.
You think? Yeah, no kidding.
And, you know, everybody thought, wow, if just legalized in Canada, ultimately the US is legalizing very shortly. So,
and Canada, here we are. And here we are.
Canada is still the only country in the world today where cannabis is legal from a recreational standpoint. There's no other country out there today that recreational cannabis is legal from a federal standpoint. Remember that, okay? So we should play the Canadian national anthem. So with that, and if I listened to everybody that told me you need to get into the U.S. market, you need to buy into these U.S. companies like a Cannabis did with Acreage and like they did with others, and how everybody started to realize the big opportunity is U.S. What I focused on, number one, was Canada was the only country, and I focused on the Canadian market. And at that time, you know, cannabis in Canada was about a $2 billion market at retail. And there was a lot of LPs coming in place. But what I decided to do, I was going to focus on getting our Canadian market right.
Okay.
We had 2 grow spaces, about a million and a half square feet. Nobody really grew cannabis in 3 million square feet of grow. Okay. No one really knew how to grow from a potency standpoint. No one in the illicit market had grow houses like we had.
Right.
And Afria went out and spent over $1 billion, that's a B, in building out these spaces. So there was so much money thrown at these guys. It was crazy. And they went out and spent that. Afria, just before I got there, did an acquisition. They spent $550 million with a $55 million, EBITDA, 55,000 EBITDA business, and buying businesses in Colombia, Jamaica, Germany, Argentina. And these were just licenses and wishes and dreams. Okay. So I walked into Afria. There was a lot of cleaning up to do. And trust me, there was a lot of cleaning up to do. There was a lot of trucks that we had to back up.
I bet.
Get rid of a lot there. And that was my focus, is to get Canada right. And very quickly, with Carl's help and working with Carl, we went out there and stabilized Afria, because, Afria would not have been around if we didn't do it. There was pretty close to having to close the doors and the cash that we were burning through.
Yeah.
And ultimately, everybody was doing that because there was so much cash being thrown at you.
Yeah.
So in 2019, very quickly, Carl and myself went out and raised $300 million in April of 2019. And I am proud to say we paid back all that debt this year. So all that subordinate debt has been paid back, which is, a great accomplishment to have. So that's number one. Number two, we were able to get rid of deals that were out there, in regards to Brazil, in regards to old deals with Portugal, Jamaica, Colombia, and stop all that bleeding, and where we could get in front of things to stop burning that cash. And we did that. So with that, my whole thing then was, how do we pivot? How do we get bigger? How do we scale this up?
Which you've done.
Which we've done. Canada is what, 39, 40 million people? If half the population can buy cannabis, it's not that big a business that you're going to have there. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you got 2,000 LPs out there selling cannabis plus still an illicit market, it's not going to be easy to do something there. So my thing is, how do we diversify? How do we do a roll up? And, we went on to buy Tilray. We did a reverse merger with Tilray, and then we went on to buy Hexo. And then, this year we bought Truss from a beverage standpoint. So that was our roll up in the Canadian cannabis business. And, with that, we got a double-digit market share today. And we're profitable in our Canadian cannabis business today. So with that, there's a big country out there called the US.
Right.
And I originally came out with a $4 billion plan, but $2.5 billion of that was supposed to come from the US.
Right.
If legalization happened.
And here we are.
Biden came into play. Everybody thought the Democrats would legalize cannabis in the US. Biden's going out to play, and his vice president's coming into play. I got 100 days left, and I know we were having discussions, prior. We've talked about rescheduling. We've talked about legalization from a medical standpoint, but I'm not sure what's going to happen in the next 100 days here.
Yeah, I hear you.
So my objective was, how do I go out and build businesses that are adjacency to the cannabis business? Because I'll tell you what, not being a cannabis user, not really knowing enough about the cannabis market when I stepped in here, I see such a bright future for cannabis in so many different ways. In regards to medical cannabis, in regards to, using cannabis from a connection, from a relaxation, using it for anxiety, pain, cancer drugs, epilepsy, in the replacement of drinks out there and being part of drinks. So
Yeah.
I see the cannabis industry such a big industry and such a big opportunity. If I could sell cannabis infused drinks in the US today, we'd be talking about different numbers coming out with. So with that, what's the right business for Tilray to go into? I could have went into the food business, could have went out there and looked at my old company, Hain Celestial. I could have looked at other food companies, but I picked beer. And I thought the reason for beer is the category was not growing, that there would be adjacencies. They would be ultimately, I could come out with lots of different drinks, whether it's energy drinks, water drinks infused with CBD or THC. So in December 2020, we buy this beer business in Atlanta, Georgia called Sweetwater 420.
Yeah.
And I liked it because of the 420 connotation, the connection there.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into the beer business. And it was an entrepreneur that owned it. And then came along a little thing called COVID. So for the next 2 years, on premises shut down. Cannabis stores in Canada are shut down. You only can go to curbside. So had to deal with that. So what I was trying to do with Tilray was to diversify the business. With Tilray, a good medical business came along, a good facility in Portugal came along, something called Manitoba Harvest came along with it.
Yeah.
And how did we streamline that? So number one was how to continue to grow our cannabis business in Canada. Number two is how did we grow adjacency business in the US with Sweetwater? And again, that was to get new distribution, come out with products with terpenes in it that smelt like cannabis, even though you could not put any THC products or THC in drinks. And perception very much was that it was a cannabis infused drink, even though it wasn't. So with that, we did other acquisitions on the West Coast. We bought Green Flash, Alpine, and Nelson. We went on to buy Montauk Beer in the East Coast, which was a great brand in the East Coast. And this past year, we went out and bought from Anheuser-Busch 8 of their craft brands. So very quickly, we went from selling 2.5 million cases in 2020 to 12, 13 million cases of beer today. We've become the 5th largest craft brewer. We have 500 beer distributors. We have 6 plants out there. We have 13 pubs out there or restaurants that are connected to our beer businesses. So that's what we've created within our beverage business. And then along the way, we went out and acquired a spirits business, which is Breckenridge Distillery, which has a premium bourbon, vodka, and gin business. So again, thank God
you pivoted with the times. I will hand that to you. You've absolutely pivoted with the times. You had to, right? When I look at this, and I'm going to go off script with some of the questions here, but where do you see, I guess, the biggest opportunity? Like we talk about all the legislation in Washington, rescheduling. We talked to Boris Jordan yesterday, and he said, look, in the event, let's say Kamala Harris were to be elected as president, we're probably looking at a minimum 3 years of actual research that'll take place. Further to that, if we want any kind of descheduling, you're probably looking at a second term if she were to be reelected. So that's another 4 to 5 years out. Do you still see the U.S. market, as far as cannabis is concerned, as the biggest opportunity for this business? Or is this a new company with a diversified approach that's all about distribution, alcohol, beverage, and cannabis combined?
So listen, what's happened now, if Biden would have continued in this, in the quest for the presidency, I think we're almost assured it would have been a Trump administration. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, and the Republicans and Trump are not in favor of, rescheduling of cannabis and, from a regulatory standpoint, approving recreational cannabis in the U.S. So I don't think Republicans are in place, not happening. The only thing I think about Harris, she put away a lot of drug dealers for small time crimes. And I think she realized her mistakes. And I think, she has come out openly and talked about it. I think there is an opportunity if she becomes the president of the United States. Now, there's a lot of other factors in regards where that makes sense. And I come back and I say, and I was at a dinner the other night, we had this whole discussion, who do we want as president of the United States? There's the business aspect of it. There is being an American aspect of it, being Jewish as an aspect of it. There's lots of discussions with that.
Yeah.
So for my shareholders, for my consumers, I have to pivot to build a business. And I'm proud, we can come up with projections of $950 million to $1 billion. Okay. And how do we get to, profitability from a net income standpoint? How do we get to a $2-3 billion company?
Right.
So, I can't put up in my net sales a line that says waiting for regulation. Here's what we would be. Here's my projections, and take that down to an EBITDA. GAAP accounting doesn't allow you to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did I pivot to? And I see so much opportunity in the beverage category, and the beverage category from a category size is trillions of dollars in size.
Yeah.
So with that, yes, we'll play the waiting game to see what happens with rescheduling, see what happens with regulation, but you got to have options out there. I see still big opportunities in the Canadian market. And just, let me come back and talk about the Canadian market where we've, been shunned there. We've had, in regards to price compression, have lost over $200 million on our top line and our bottom line because of price compression in Canada. Okay. Because if you're selling something cheaper, you still got the cost of goods, you still got the labor costs. It's the difference between what you could have sold it for and what you sold it for. And that just drops to the bottom line. At the same time, we're paying $150 million in excise tax in Canada today.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change because it's a fixed rate. It's not a percentage rate of the selling price. It's a fixed rate. So just imagine if the government ever went and had changed the excise tax as a percentage and the percentage of what pricing, the difference that we'd be paying in excise tax.
Right.
The third thing is, because we're selling cannabis, insurance costs are probably tripled what they are for other food companies or other beverage companies. So I had to deal with that. So that was a big, overcome that we had to, deal with in regards to profitability and operating income within our businesses. But we've done that. So today, our focus is to grow and double our cannabis business in Canada. And that's through new innovation. That's through new products. That's educating more and more new consumers and bringing them into the category. I think there's going to be more consolidation in the cannabis business and industry. I think the illicit market continues, to get smaller as policing looks to enforce that. So I see good opportunity for us within cannabis in the Canadian market. But as I said before, Canada's 38 to 40 million people. And, if half the population were within an age, it's not that big a market for us.
Well, I thought it was good, the cap size increasing from 75 to 150 for licenses in Ontario. But some of the companies that we've had on that focus a lot on retail, we did actually speak to the Attorney General in Toronto. This is about a month ago, Anthony, if I'm correct. But that was one of the questions that we brought up. As much as price compression has been in play, the excise tax for a lot of these companies has remained. But they have indicated to us it's something that they will reevaluate and look at. It's just a matter of when. But I guess your guess is as good as mine. But it is good to see that the legal market in a province like Ontario that holds probably 40% of the country's population is building.
Right. And governments don't like to give back on excise tax.
No, they don't.
Okay. And part of the thing is with alcohol sales down in Canada and losing excise tax there.
Yeah.
They don't want to give up the excise tax that they're collecting in the cannabis world from a standpoint there.
Yeah.
And listen, there's going to be an election in the next couple of years, going to be a change within the government there. And I'm not sure, what happens in the Conservatives. But again, I think there's great opportunity because we're well positioned within Canada. In Canada, we're vertically integrated. We have over 5 million square feet of grow space. We produce 90% of our own products there. So we're in a good place in Canada. Come to the US, So what do I got to do here? I look to grow our beverage businesses, and double to triple to that. And I see that by organic growth, new innovation, new products, getting additional distribution, and doing additional acquisitions there.
Mhm.
And that's something that we're going to do within the U.S. market.
Interesting.
In regards to our wellness business, our hemp business, our spirits business, they're much smaller businesses. The combined and together is close to $100 million. And how do we grow those? But there's opportunities. So when I look at Tilray today, I got Tilray recreational cannabis, Tilray medical cannabis, Tilray wellness, Tilray beverages. Is there a fifth spoke out there for us, or a fifth wheel that we need to look at to continuously to diversify this business as we bring people together and being a lifestyle company? And that's things, as I put my strategic plan together, that I'm looking at if cannabis does not legalize.
Yeah.
And then Europe. I'm pretty excited about Europe. We got a good sized business in Europe today. We have two great facilities, one in Germany, one in Portugal. What has happened in regards to rescheduling in Germany could have a big effect. Germany got 80 million people. There's a big demand. Every doctor now can write a prescription in Germany. So I see some big opportunities. Then, Europe has 600 million people. Where are the opportunities within Europe to expand into different countries from a medical cannabis?
Yeah.
And, we sell within 20 countries today. The other opportunities I'm looking at is, where do we go in the Middle East in selling non-alcohol drinks?
Yep.
Where do we go in the alcohol business within Europe and Canada? We don't really sell, we sell a little bit of shock top in Canada today. Other than that, we really don't sell much alcohol. We don't sell, any alcohol in Europe. Maybe there's some shipments and that come across the board, but there's no real business for us. So how do we grow our international business in the alcohol spirits business? And is there acquisitions in that for us there? And we're absolutely looking at. So that's,
well, here's something we get brought up all the time, is the topic of hemp-derived products. And with the Sweetwater brand, I know, Anthony, you wanted to touch on that because that's something you focus on.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on the beverage business as it relates to the U.S. I mean, when you bought Sweetwater 420, and then when you bought the portfolio from AB InBev, I mean, I was bullish on those transactions when everybody was kind of questioning them. And I could kind of see the foreshadowing up to, well, this is probably going to be for a U.S. cannabis presence in the future, not today. With the trends that we're seeing as it relates to hemp-derived products, what's the plan around that? I mean, you have the brand portfolio that you could actually spin them up quite quickly. Sweetwater 420, Shock Top, like these brands would resonate within the cannabis space. What's the plan for that? As there's a ton of brands doing it today already in the States.
So with Sweetwater 420, with Shock Top, with Happy Flower, we have, and today having a 40% market share in Canada with THC drinks. We have the formulations ready to go.
Okay.
We have the marketing plan ready to go. All we want to make sure we're not going to be in any violation with regulatory, with NASDAQ, with banking, with auditors and stuff like that. And I feel right now we have got the boxes checked on every one of those. And we will make sure we only go into the states that we can do that. Listen.
So it's a lot more complicated behind the scenes than what people can imagine, correct?
It's a lot more complicated. If Tilray wanted tomorrow to do all these things, we just move over to the Canadian Stock Exchange and do it. But again, one of the biggest assets within Tilray today is our NASDAQ listing, our liquidity. We'll trade over 70 million shares today. I think Apple probably traded 20 million shares today. I don't know what Microsoft and, Amazon traded. So we have a great retail shareholder base that likes to trade in our stock. And the big thing is, how do I bring more institutional shareholders into our stock that they see we're a consumer packaged goods company and don't just look at us as a cannabis company? And that's a big move that Tilray needs to do.
And then also speaking about Germany, I mean, I know that you were granted the incremental license. I think it was last week,
Yep.
to grow your domestic cultivation up to fivefold, expand the catalog of genetics that you can grow. I think up to 30 strains. How does that impact the business, and how is that also going to impact your competitors that are currently in the German market that are importing their cannabis versus domestic cultivation? I mean, does that give you an edge here? Moving forward with that license?
Big time edge, because remember, we have that facility in Germany right now, and we only could sell to the German government at a price that was below our costs, to produce. So from a profitability standpoint, that changes tremendously.
Mm,
Secondly, supply wise, it now increases our supply that we have available to sell into the full marketplace there, where either that was coming out of Portugal or coming out of Canada. So,
Okay.
and again, we have now additional strains and genetics that we can sell into this marketplace. So that is big time for us. But, Aurora just got, similar license to do it. There's other competition over there. The big thing there is making sure you're marketing to the doctors, and that you got the boots on the street that can go ahead and do that. One of the other thing is we have, a distribution company called CC Pharma, Tilray Pharma,
right, right.
that sells into 13,000 drugstores. So from a vertical integration, we have the ability to get to the drugstores. But, we're looking at online drugstores. We're looking at a lot of different things here. We're looking at working with multiple, doctors, medical supply companies, and
Has it
stuff
been
like that.
has it been more receptive in Germany
Yeah,
since the announcement was made? Have you seen a difference?
big time. I think you heard us say on the call, our sales so far since this has happened in this quarter, our sales are up about 65%.
Is
It's
this
just,
more about like it's finally it happened versus saying like this is they're new to this sort of thing? Like
well,
was
I
it long
think
overdue?
it's finally that it happened, but now there's more doctors that can write prescriptions.
Right, of
Okay.
course. Of
So
course.
it's just access and availability. But listen, you're still going to have to deal with this happening. There's still pricing compression. There's still a illicit market. Everybody's going to want to sell into this market. But again, it's making sure you educate what Tilray Medical is and what it stands for and the
Yeah.
quality of product. So it's just not the market's open. It's a free for all. And what you don't want to happen is similar to what happened in Canada when the market opened.
Of
It
course.
became a free for all. Okay.
Yeah, I hear you. Want to go back profitability. I know you'd mentioned that you outlined that there was a loss on the year. However, the losses basically came down substantially from year over year. It was 224 million compared to 1.4 billion a year ago. With that, what's the message that you want to communicate to investors when it comes to, I guess, maybe leveraging what you have now and really what comes next to achieve profitability in 2025?
So I'm a big cash guy, and I like to generate cash. I'm big on EBITDA. If you come back and look at Tilray today, one of the big things in Tilray we have, because of our costs with infrastructures and our acquisitions, we have much higher amortization costs, depreciation costs, and stock comp. So last year with the $1.1 billion, that was non-cash impairment. If you take this past quarter, I think there was a $15 million loss. If you look at that loss, the majority of it, if not all of it, was all non-cash.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's educating our investors what's part of that cash and look at us from a free cash flow. I want to make sure we're generating cash that's funding our operations, that we're not using our cash to fund operations. And for shareholders, if we're out there raising cash through an ATM, I want to make sure we're using that cash not to fund losses, is using that cash to do accretive strategic acquisitions for this company that builds this company out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pivoting with
I
the
mean,
times, right?
And I think what's important is this here, there's an old saying, if someone looks at you and say, you don't look good. I feel good. I don't look good. But I really feel good. You look in the mirror and say, well, maybe I don't feel good. When you come back and look at your stock price, you say, maybe I'm not doing as good a job as I think we're doing out there. Okay. And that is the big thing. You know, if you come back and look at Tilray, where we came from, what we own today, we own over 40 brands. Over 90% of our products are produced internally today. You look at it where we came from, a $50 million to a projection out there between 950 to $1 billion. We have $260 million of cash. Our debt levels are 1.7 times EBITDA. You know, our stock price has not performed, and that's a big part because we get the swoosh of cannabis and all the other issues that have gone along with cannabis. So I don't think we're looked at the right way. And that is like, look at the big loss they had. And you got to look and understand the balance sheet. The other thing is this here, which is great. You know, I only have 12% institutional shareholders out there.
12.
Yeah.
It's all retail driven.
It's all retail driven. So what we need to do, and a lot of it is not because they don't like what we're doing. It's just that a lot of institutional shareholders will not come into this space for two reasons. Number one, maybe they can't, and that's some of their bylaws in regards to only cannabis stocks, or they've been burnt with a lot of other the cannabis companies from before,
of course,
and want to stay the hell away from this category. But what's important for us, we're no longer just a cannabis company, okay? Yep. We are a consumer packaged good company, which is important for our investors to know.
Which is I just have one more question. I just have one more question as it relates to the U.S. Irwin. I mean, I know that you guys have bought some of MedMen's convertible debt a while back. I mean, MedMen has been one of the organizations in the U.S. that's been embroiled in drama. I think we saw that they're winding down all of their New York stores late last week. Just what's the status of that investment, if you're deeming it that, on the balance sheet, or what's your view on that moving forward as far as that asset goes?
Listen, I'll never forget, I was in California as one of my sons attended USC, and I walked into a MedMen store, and I'm like, wow, this is the future. This is Apple.
They're beautiful. The best thing they ever did was retail.
Beautiful. Okay. Unfortunately, again, if you looked at the amount of money they blew through, the amount of money that they spent on these stores, the amount of money they spent on their headquarters, okay? Yeah. The way they traveled, the way they lived, and the way they paid for themselves. And that's what happened to the cannabis industry. You know, when we acquired it, I acquired it because I thought MedMen, and, you know, I was sitting in LA one time and I saw this red bag and I said, MedMen probably has the best brand name out there from, you know, a brand equity standpoint that could go national, because that was one of the things. There was no real brand out there. And that's why I invested in it. We couldn't own it, bought the equity. So with that, we had some horrible leases. We had some legacy, you know, liabilities that we acquired. We had lawsuits that we acquired, and going through, you know, the liquidation, the bankruptcy, and everything it is, you know, as a secured creditor, we ended up owning, with our other investor, Don Hankey, we ended up owning, you know, about 9 to 11 stores, which now we have MedMen 3.0. Okay. And we will build out those stores. We've written this down on our balance sheet, I think, to about $30 million, but I still think the MedMen name is still one of the best brands out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think there's still opportunity now that we got rid of a lot of this legacy liabilities that we picked up.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that red bag is iconic. You're completely on base there. Their stores are beautiful. I mean, that's the first dispensary that I went to, the one in LA, straight from the airport. And I was like, these guys are going to be the biggest thing in cannabis. Yeah. And here we are, which you're right.
And that's gross
negligence.
Yeah. And gross negligence and overspending and just so much money being thrown at them. Yeah. I mean, I've been in headquarters before. I've never seen a headquarters, you know, like they had. That store near the airport, you know, that was like a $40-50 million store.
It was beautiful. Okay. And it was packed.
Packed. You know, there was rents that they were paying $200,000 a month in rents. I mean, we rented a location here in Soho. We're paying $200,000 a month and never ever opened these stores. Okay. Yeah. So just gross mismanagement, gross spending out there that we inherited that ultimately now is behind us.
Yeah. Well, look, I think for value for people that are watching, like here we are today, we saw a lot of money that was raised. A lot of people made money. A lot of people lost a lot of money in the early days. But here we are, and it's all about diversification. Yes, there has been some stuff that slowed basically the legislation forefront in the U.S. market. But looking at this now, great play as far as diversifying, pivoting with the times, and creating a balanced approach with your business. I have to ask a hypothetical question, though, and that is, if we get rescheduling, which many people do believe that we'll get that announced before the election, and we're also hearing that safe banking could pass during a lame duck session, what does that do for you, your MedMen property, as far as the focal point going into 2025 for this company? Does that U.S. market related to cannabis still present the biggest opportunity for your company?
Listen, it presents a big opportunity. I think, we got a run rate today of $1 billion sales, and growing that is what I think one of the biggest opportunities. I hate to sit back and just bet on what could come, but if it does happen, listen, we're one of the largest growers of cannabis in the world today, so we know how to grow cannabis. And I know there's a lot of states out there, multi-state operators, but they don't have the grow that we have. We have a medical business that we have out there that ultimately is a big medical business in Europe and and Canada, and taking that knowledge base. We also have a big beverage business that we can do infused drinks. The other big thing is just bringing in institutional shareholders within Tilray, because now there's rescheduling and safe bank. And if I could just double or triple and get to 25-30% of my shareholders being institutional shareholders, it changes my base dramatically and changes, who ultimately is going to hold the stock.
What's the interest level been with that, Irwin, as far as the institutional side? Like, are you drumming up a lot of conversations recently, knowing the news that's broke out of Washington pertaining to rescheduling?
Listen, there's a lot of interest within Tilray shares, and if you got 60 million shares today, I don't believe it's just all retail buying in and out there. Okay.
Right.
No.
I think there's a lot of interest in cannabis, what's going to happen. But I think there's a lot of interest coming within Tilray today just because of our diversification, because of our balance sheet. And listen, here it comes. You got to have a strong management team. I believe I do that. We have over 40 brands today. We have products that are connecting with today's consumer. Okay. And with that, how do we reward shareholders? Our stock is not expensive. And with that, I think, institutional shareholders and retail shareholders are looking at the buying opportunity. The big thing today too, is you come back and look at the balance sheet. Everybody didn't want companies that are full of debt, that couldn't raise money, that could go out of business. And as you look at it today, with $260 million of cash and 1.7 leverage, they see Tilray, has lots of legs. And just to come back for a second, it took 17 years for Tesla to become profitable. It took 9 years for Apple. It took 7 years for Microsoft.
We got spoiled from day one in cannabis. You saw $100,000 turn into $1 million in 8 weeks.
Exactly. And that's kind of some of the, things I'm dealing with now. It is to tread water and to try and, get all those memories out of the way.
2019, you were appointed as CEO, correct?
Well, 2019, in December 28th, I took over as executive chairman. I came in here, we had the short report, we had multiple other things I came in here to clean up. And when the CEO left and the founders left, is looked at who was going to be the CEO. And don't forget, I built a company called Hain Celestial to a $3.5 billion company. And I said, I never want to run another public company again. And here I am. So 2019, in March 1, I took over, and Carl Merton, who was my CFO, was the only, person that stayed with me. And it was great to have Carl work with me. And he's been a great partner and a great ally in doing this.
I know you've learned a lot, but I'll leave this last one question with you. 2024, now in the books, we begin a new fiscal year. What do you think is the biggest thing you learned in the past 12 months about running this company? Because I know I would think diversification and pivoting with the times comes to mind, but I'll let you answer that question.
Listen, every day I learn something new, and the big thing is, like I said, I hate to disappoint, but the challenges out there, the expectations. I expected that the government would reduce excise tax. It didn't happen. I expected something to happen within rescheduling and legalization. Okay, and that didn't happen. I expected this year no price compression. Price compression, about $12 million happened, but it only happened in the first, 3 quarters. In regards to growing cannabis, we've ran into some challenges in regards to our potency and dealing with that. I hate when our stock goes down and not making shareholders happy and getting those threatening notes out there. So every day it's like, what can happen out there? And what can I do to improve our shareholders, our cash balance, and raising money? So, it's been a challenging year. And okay, we reported earnings yesterday. We talk about it today. And what are you doing for me tomorrow is something that, I have to live with. And that's the role we take on as CEO. At the other hand, we have 2,700 employees that got to be engaged. The big thing too is, how do you make sure you keep the culture in the business? And what is the culture? And that's very important to me, is the culture of the business and what you create and the company that, we're made up of.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question, but let me tell you something.
You can't pit it on one thing. I will let you know.
You can't pit it on one thing. And every day I wake up, I say, what 2x4 is going to hit me in the head today? And how hard are those 2x4s? As a hockey player, am I going to get a cross check? Am I going to get a punch in the face? Am I getting tripped? And maybe I score a goal or two.
I hear you there. I'm getting a text message from your assistant saying that you've got a hard stop. So I have time to let you go. But listen, appreciate you checking in. And hopefully our viewers got a lot of great responses from you. But job well done. I think as far as diversifying, it isn't easy because, as they say, if it was easy, they wouldn't need you. And this is one space that is not easy.
Exactly. Like they say, you're as good as your last quarter. And I look to be back on the next quarter, hopefully saying the same things.
Good stuff.
We look forward to having you.
Thanks, Irwin. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, Irwin.
All right.
Appreciate
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was good takeaway. I think, if anything, I know we're trying to get in there with some questions at times, but he provided a lot of good information. But at the end of the day, you got to hand it to the guy. Like, you could sit here as a Canadian LP and rely on basically one vertical. But where's that going to lead you in an oversaturated Canadian market? But
yeah. I mean, the recurring theme that we've seen with the Canadian LP CEOs, whether it's talking to David Klein, whether it's talking to Bean at Organigram, Irwin Tilray, I mean, this excise tax has to get dealt with.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like it's just more onerous on the Canadian LPs than what 280E is to the US MSOs, just in terms of it's not variable. It's based on how the system was built on inception, where the price of cannabis was much higher. So, I mean, that onerous tax needs to go away.
Well, I think you brought up a good point too regarding the hemp angle. And there's more to the story than meets the eye. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes being listed on the NASDAQ, but it sounds like if everything is in line with their listing, this could move quickly for them. And what an opportunity that could present, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the opportunity is fully baked. I mean, we didn't talk about the most important thing to that beverage business, which I've heard from a lot of the operators. And the key is the gatekeepers in terms of distribution. If he's moving 13 million cases of beer on an annual basis, Irwin's probably already cozied up to those distributors and or owns part of the distribution chain already in present day. I mean, like he said, it's plug and play. They have the formulations, they have the bottling, they have the distribution. All they need to do is make the product and sell it through. You could bet that Total Wine, ABC Liquors, they're all carrying the beers that they own and sell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, selling through the product where you can already have it on the shelf seems like a pretty easy proposition for them.
500 plus beer distributors right now they have. So lot of MedMen. I thought you guys had some really good stories. Man, what a brand that was.
I thought MedMen was going to be the biggest. I thought MedMen was going to be the biggest cannabis business in the world.
Remember some of the conferences you'd go to and their display that they'd set up?
Like, I mean, the stores are the only thing. if their product was as good, if their product and their management was as good as their retail experience, they'd be singing right now. I mean, they had stores in the best locations you could imagine. The store on Tropical Way in Las Vegas, that was right off the strip by the airport in LA, all of their other stores in those West Coast markets. But Irwin's right. I mean, Adam went out and bought a store on Fifth Avenue in New York City that couldn't even operate for, I think, a year.
Yeah.
That they just treaded water on the lease. But that red MedMen bag, that thing is iconic. Like, you can say what you want to say about MedMen. MedMen got the branding right. They nailed it.
We got a lot of new viewers here today. I think we got a lot of Tilray followers. If you got any chance, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Outside of Irwin, we interview all the top executives in this space. #1 video content provider for business and stocks related to the cannabis space as well. We've made some great trips out to Washington, including interviews at JD Vance. So if you haven't gotten a chance, make sure to subscribe. Check out some of those videos and get feedback where we've had with Senator JD Vance, who could be the vice president, and what his take is obviously on the cannabis space, among other different senators, congressmen, and women. We have reached out to Congresswoman Nancy Mace, hopefully to get her on relatively soon. So we'll keep you posted on when she can. And as usual, subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. A lot of the content that we're providing, both from a video and editorial component, is available daily. So make sure to just click on that QR code in the lower right-hand corner and subscribe to our channel and continue the growth. We appreciate it. Spread the words, my friend, because it's our responsibility to get Washington up to date and informed about this space. And it's going to be up to us and the companies in this industry that are involved to get real change. But first incremental step is rescheduling, right, my friend?
Yeah. And I mean, Irwin's right about liquidity. I mean, they've traded 4.5 million shares since we've been on the stream.
4.5, 5 million.
Yeah. 10 million in notional value, which is probably more than all of the MSOs combined today.
Yeah. Leave some comments below if you guys think it would be valuable as well. If you think it would be great if we actually went out to some of these locations, facilities that Tilray owns. And if you think it would be beneficial if we did some filming and some documentary style footage there as well. If you do find that helpful, then like I said, smash that like button, leave some comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Tomorrow, I guess we will see who we have on as far as a guest. We'll look at our network, maybe Don Murphy, Canadian lobbyist, to get him back on. We'll reach out to him amongst a few others. What's that?
Canadian lobbyist?
Did I say Canadian? Sorry, I meant cannabis. Cannabis. Yeah. My apologies. Talking about Tilray too much here today. But the Canada side, there's a couple comments here too. Hyatt 9 News said, "Why is everybody so hyped about the beverage side of the business?" My response to that is we brought it up because he had to pivot with the times. But go ahead.
So here's why, and it's pretty easy. This is a smaller market, Minnesota. They're eating into double-digit market share of alcohol sales in the state of Minnesota. Cannabis beverages. That's all you need to know. Cannabis beverages, Boris said it best yesterday. The OG consumers and people that consume cannabis are going into dispensaries. He needs a way to go after the canna curious and the people that need to stumble into cannabis products. You know who's going to try a cannabis seltzer? Someone that walks into Total Wine, sees an end cap that's there to buy a bottle of wine and says, "Oh, that looks interesting. Let me try that." Beverages are the biggest form factor beverages will be the biggest form factor in cannabis. Is it going to be my preferred method for consuming? No. Is it going to be yours? Probably not. But my wife's going to go buy them. My mom's going to go buy them. Totally. And a lot of other people are going to find them at mass retail and become cannabis consumers. People that are sleeping on beverages, I don't really know what to tell you. The trend is here. Just go look at Cantrip, Happy, all the other guys that are performing. They're selling a hell of a lot of product.
Look at the comments here. Jeffrey Mills, amen, Anthony. All you need to do is experience it once. Have a good time. I mean,
well, hold on. That's not true that Minnesota is the only state that allows that type of sales. I can go to Total Wine down the street from my house. I'm in South Florida, and they have 20 SKUs of hemp beverages that I can go buy right now.
Yeah. Well, all you got to do is experience it once. Have a good time and wake up the next day and not feel like a hangover with alcohol. And once you have that, you're going to get people hooked. That's for sure. All right, my friend, I will check back in with you tomorrow. As usual, people comment and leave some comments below on some of the stuff that we've just outlined. We'd love to get your feedback. Again, subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will see all of you back here tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock, for our latest Trade to Black live stream. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.